The following program is rated T for teen for the use of tools and materials that can be harmful to unsupervised usage. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, Mr. Waugh here from Mr. Waugh Media, and yes, that is my actual name. And today, a really cool sneak peek episode of Framework from Dungeons & Dragons. Now before we actually jump into the review, I want to give a huge shout out to Chris over at Distribution for actually giving me this box. He knew that I had a YouTube channel and he said he wanted to give me a copy so that we could help promote it for when it actually does release. So thank you so much, Chris, for entrusting this to me. I hope you like it, and I hope all of you guys like it as well. Now, if you don't know, D&D actually has a huge model line. Everything you need to make your own custom characters, NPCs, and all the monsters that you might encounter in your campaign. If you caught some of the previous episodes like the Demon, that one, and wherever it's going to pop up here, the Treeman episode, that was all D&D miniatures. So they've got fantastic pieces, but the only drawback is they're all monopose. There's no customization. And that's what they're hoping to change with the whole framework thing. The idea is you buy this one, it's the Druid Box, and it gives you about 12 different accessories to make your own character. And from what I gather, and don't quote me on the level of flexibility here, but you basically can combine this box with all the other ones to really mix and match and make your own character. So I'm going to do an unboxing for this thing, I'm going to build it, and then we're going to paint this thing. Let's get started. Alright folks, let's jump into this. So here we have it, the Dungeons & Dragons Framework Retail Sneak Preview. We were given the Human Druid box set, so thanks once again for Chris for sending this. This is really awesome. As you can see here, there's about a dozen or so different accessories. In the one hand, you have stuff like little blades. In this one, you can have a staff. There's an animal companion. You get a couple different heads. There's some accessories. So it's not a huge amount of things, but you know what? It gives you enough to play around with, and I was told that some of these you can swap with the other frameworks. I'm not sure if they're all going to be completely compatible, so don't quote me on that. But, you know, hey, it should give us something to play with. So, let's crack this thing open. It doesn't have any plastic on this one. It might just be the demo. Alright, and this is what the frame itself looks like. So you've got your torso, you've got your legs, and like I said, there's not a whole heck of a lot on here. There's the staff in the bottom corner there. There's a rock for her to stand on. Now this one came with a basic clear base. It wasn't really anything to write home about. I'll probably swap it out for something a bit bigger, but for now, yeah, this is the Sprue. It's got a little bit of everything. Because the pieces are so small and finicky, I decided to save myself a bit of a headache, and instead of doing it on screen, I'm just going to do it off camera, but I'll lay everything out first before I do that. As you can see here, we've got the torso, we've got the legs, I've got this little wicked curved dagger on the side here, there's a wizard staff which has some cool trinkets, there's going to be a single pouch on her hip, and I went with the hooded head. These are the accessories that I thought kind of looked the coolest, and that's kind of the direction I want to take the character. So these are the 6 pieces. I'm going to just glue them off screen, and we're going to jump right into the painting.
Alright, so the very first thing that I did was prime the entire model in black. And you got dealer's choice here. You can either go with a rattle can, or you can just hand brush it on with some black acrylic paint. Whatever works better for you. Once I gave that ample time to dry, I'm going to go in there with some generic brown. I'm going to put on some different pieces, such as the cloth elements, anything that has wood, all of the flesh elements, and the base itself, which I've already off-screen quickly dipped it in glue and sand just to get that step out of the way, because that does take the longest to dry. And yeah, I'll just apply a pretty generous coat to all those areas, and you should have something looking a bit like this. Next up, we're going to use 1 part white to 2 parts brown to make a lighter color, and we'll dry brush this over all the previous elements that we just did. Now I'm going to go very light over, say, the flesh and the cloth and that sort of thing, and when it comes to the base, that's going to get a bit of a heavier coat, just to really lay it in nice and thick. And the next layer is going to be just as straightforward. It's just 2 parts white to 1 part brown, and just lightly dust that over everything we've done previously. But while we have a little bit of space here, I wanted to quickly mention the assembly of this model. The girl's wrists are very, very small. We're talking like the head of a pin. And it was a real headache to assemble. I'm glad you guys didn't have to actually see me doing that. So just bear that in mind with this one in particular. Assembly was a little bit of a headache. But this is what it looks like with that extra layer dusted on there, and we'll just move on to the next step. Alright, we're going to start working on the cloak. This is going to be using a dark emerald color, and we're just going to lay it on there relatively thick. About 95% of the cloak is going to be covered. Just a little bit of the black is going to be showing in between, right where the shadow lines are. If you get it in there, don't worry about it. We're also going to use a wash afterwards to really pack it in there. But anything that you don't have to do extra, that's good in my book. Alright, I'm going to do the hood here, and she's got these sort of shoulder pads that come off the side. Those will get a light little dusting as well. And this is the coverage that you're going to be looking for. Oh, let me just bop the camera there. That should focus it. There we go. Alright, I'm going to give that plenty of time to dry there, and then I'm going to go in with a color called Lauren Green. The best way I can describe it, it looks kind of like smushed peas. It's definitely got that organic vegetable kind of look, which I guess is perfect for our druid, and I assume she probably is vegetarian. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm going to have to boop the camera here. For whatever reason, it's been acting up all day. You're going to see me doing that action a lot, so just bear with me, but it's the only way I seem to focus this stupid thing. Alright, once that is out of the way, we're going to go with a light color called Death World Forest, also from Citadel. And this is going to get lighter and lighter. You know the drill. The lighter the color, the lighter my brush strokes are. And we're just going to keep going through these different layers here. With the cloak itself, I'm trying to stay on the upmost raised areas, as you can see here, leaving darker colors behind in the crevices. Alright, we are going in with an even lighter color, Death Guard Green. And, you guessed it, light brush strokes, light colors. Boop the camera. Boop it! There we go. Boop it! Ah, there we go. Oh, that's going to get so annoying. I'm going to tear out what's left of my hair, all 1 centimeter of it. But you're not here about my male pattern baldness, you're here to learn to paint, so let's jump into the next layer. This is called Warpstone Glow, and it's a very bright neon green color. And because we've already laid down our dark to light on the cloak, this just punches in and saturates the color and really makes it pop out. But remember, I'm using barely any paint here. A little is going a long way. And we get this really nice effect. Alright, with the cloak out of the way, we're now going to move on to the flesh elements, and for this one we're going to switch over to Vallejo paints, and this one's called Flat Flesh, and this will be applied to her feet, her hands, and her face. Now, the keen eye of you might notice later on in the final shots, you won't notice her feet anymore. The problem is there were some imperfections in the model itself, and it became really noticeable when I put more layers of paint down. So instead, what I decided to do was just go in there, put some dark chocolate and highlight it with some browns to make it look like she's wearing some like boots or something like that. And then I just covered it in shrubbery just to hide it. You might not have really noticed it unless I pointed it out, but for me, it was really glaring in my face, so I wanted to nip that one in the bud. And there we go. We got the flesh elements out of the way for now. Now up to this point, all of our brown elements are pretty much exactly the same, since it's the same dry brushing on the tunic, on the pants, as the staff, etc. The staff itself is going to get a couple different washes to make it look like a stained piece of wood, so that one's fine. The tunic will leave the same, so we'll have to change the pants a little bit. For this, I'll take 1 part red and 1 part brown to make a really rich color. I'm going to lightly brush that on all of the surfaces just to make it unique, and you can see already it's made a world of a difference. So I'll stain the wooden staff, probably do that off screen or whatever, but moving forward, we're going to start working on some of the little detailed elements. First up is the cloth grip of the staff. That's just going to get a light dusting of some tan color on there, as well as a thin strip on the front of the tunic. That's going to get some tan as well, and we're pretty much done with that step. You blink and it's already done. Alright, and we're going to move on to the metallic elements now, and since she is a druid and she doesn't carry a lot of man-made equipment on her, it's pretty much just down to her dagger in her hand. So for this one, I'm going to use some gunmetal color, aka lead belchers from Citadel, and I'm going to pack it in there really nicely. I normally would do a bit of mithril on the edges to make it pop out, but because I don't want it to be this draw of your eye right to her hand, I want to keep all the colors very muted. I'll probably go over it with some Agrax Earthshade just so there's not a glaring contrast between her and this one metallic element. As I was looking over the model, I realized that I wasn't really satisfied with the gauntlets at this point, since they were pretty much exactly the same as the staff. Even though the staff has already been stained a couple of times, it was still a little too similar for my liking. So what I decided to do was dry brush a little bit of dark chocolate on the gauntlets, just to make a clean distinction between this and some of the other brown elements. Just going in there with a very light coat, and it should have a pretty big impact. As you're looking at this. Yeah, you can definitely see a nice clean distinction between that and the tunic now. Alright, for the next step, this is going to be some crazy detail work, so we're going to have to take our time with this one. But thankfully, a lot of the detail work is already done for us. On the back of her cloak, there are these little ruins and vines that are etched into the actual fabric. So all we have to do is take a very fine brush, and I'm using this bone color. It's called Ushapti Bone. And I'm going to go very delicately over all of these raised areas. Take your time on this one. If these weren't already baked into the cloth, I probably wouldn't be doing anything quite this crazy, but it's a nice little detail, and I think it's really going to make her cloak pop out. Once I'm fully satisfied with this, I'm going to do a little bit of this is more showing off kind of thing. You definitely don't have to do this step, but I wanted to do a very fine line along the trim of her cloak, along her shoulder pads, just to really draw this element, not just to the back of the figurine, but to the front as well. Again, you don't have to go this crazy. This is me just trying to really make this thing pop out, but if you feel comfortable, go for it, because it really looks solid. If I may say so myself, bop it. There we go. There you can see the back of the cloak. It looks really nice, and a little bit of trim on the front as well. Now at this point, we're pretty much done with all of the painting elements, minus a couple touch-ups I might do here and there. Like I mentioned, the foot need a little bit of work, and I've also gone in with a very fine brush and a tiny drop of red on her lips to make it look a little bit more feminine. Now, you obviously don't need to go through that level of detail if you don't want to, but for me, I just really wanted the face to pop out a little bit more, so that was more on me. But at this point, we are done with the paint. We're going to go with some Agrax Earthshade, aka Talent in a Jar, and just apply a coat on everything to really pack in the shadows. We'll bop the camera, boop, 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 and here we go. This is what our beautiful lady is looking like. Alright, make sure you give the Agrax Earthshade plenty of time to dry before you do the next step, otherwise that can give you a couple headaches here. What we're going to do is put down some layers of Elmer's clear glue in little blops here and there, and spread them out with a little tool, a thingamabop, a whoozamawetsis, as I like to call them. And then what we're going to do is dip the base into the flock here. This is why you want it to be dry, because if she still had some wet cloak or something like that and the flock gets on there, it's a bit of a pain to clean up, but yeah, just dunk her in there, and this is what it's going to look like. I'm also going to put down a couple shrubbery, again, to hide the feet, and when it's all said and done, this is what our lovely lady is looking like. I think overall this was a fantastic kit. Aside from the tiny wrists, which took a little bit longer to glue, the rest of the model has some great details in there, especially the back of the cloak. Overall, it was a pleasure to paint. Thanks once again to Chris for hooking us up with this product. I hope you guys liked it, and we'll see what the rest of the framework model line looks like when they finally drop from Dungeons & Dragons. Well, that has been today's episode. I really hope you guys liked it and maybe found some useful information in there. If you did, make sure that you hit the like, the share, and subscribe button down below, and please pass this around to all your friends. We're really trying to build the channel from the ground up. If there's anything that you want me to build in an upcoming episode, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll be able to build it for you in the future. On that note, I've been Mr. Waugh from Mr. Waugh Media, signing off.